Krilthas stared at the data screen in his office. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep confusion among his people. The numbers made no sense. 3 Draxan battle fleets had entered Sector 447 2 weeks ago. They were supposed to claim some minor colony worlds from a newly discovered species called humans. It should have been simple. The Draxans were strong warriors, their ships powerful and their crews experienced. But now, all 3 fleets were gone. Not retreated, not damaged, gone, completely destroyed. Krilthas was the military assessor for the Galactic Council. His job was to track military conflicts across known space and report to the Council. In his 40 years of service, he had never seen anything like this. The Draxans had sent 300 warships against a species that nobody had even heard of 6 months ago. He touched the communication panel on his desk. "Send for War Marshal Vrex immediately." 20 minutes later, the Draxan commander entered his office. Vrex was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in thick scales that looked like armor. His people were known as the strongest warriors in the council. They had never lost a major conflict. "Assessor," Vrex growled, his voice like grinding rocks. "I assume you want to discuss our losses." "Losses?" Krilthas felt his breathing sacs flutter with anxiety. "War Marshal, you didn't lose ships. Your fleets were annihilated. Every single vessel. Over 15,000 of your warriors are dead." Vrex's eyes darkened. "The humans fight without honor. They used weapons we have never seen before. Their tactics are insane. They attacked from all directions at once. They never stopped. Even when we destroyed their ships, more came. They rammed us with damaged vessels." They won," Krilthas interrupted quietly. The Draxan War Marshal slammed his fist on the desk, cracking the metal surface. "We will have revenge. I am already gathering a larger fleet. 500 ships this time. We will burn their worlds to ash." Before Krilthas could respond, his communication panel blinked. An incoming message marked as urgent. He accepted it, and a hologram appeared above his desk. The image showed a human. The assessor had seen pictures of them in the database. They looked similar to several other bipedal species, though perhaps slightly shorter and less physically impressive than most. This one wore a dark blue uniform with gold markings. His face was calm, his eyes steady. "I am Admiral Jiho of the Human Defense Fleet," the recording said. His voice was quiet, but somehow it made Krilthas feel cold. "This message is for the Galactic Council and anyone else who might be interested. The Draxan Empire violated our territorial space. They attacked our colony worlds. They killed our citizens. This was their choice." We responded. "The 3 fleets they sent are now debris, floating in space. We will recycle the metal." Jiho paused, his expression unchanging. "We know the Draxans are part of your council. That is not our concern. Your internal politics mean nothing to us, but understand this clearly. We will defend our space. Anyone who enters our territory with weapons active will not leave. There will be no warnings, no second chances, only consequences." The message ended. Vrex was shaking with rage. But Krilthas noticed something else. The human admiral had not threatened, had not boasted. He simply stated facts, as if discussing the weather. That was somehow more frightening than any battle cry. "I need to see the battle recordings," Krilthas said. "They are classified," Vrex snapped. "War Marshal, 15,000 dead is not classified. It's a catastrophe. The Council needs to understand what happened." "Show me." 2 hours later, Krilthas wished he had never asked. The recordings came from the few Draxan escape pods that had managed to flee. What he saw made his blood run cold. The human ships moved wrong. Council doctrine said ships should maintain formation, present their strongest shields forward, and exchange fire at optimal range. The humans ignored all of it. Their vessels scattered in all directions, moving at speeds that should have torn them apart. They attacked from above, below, behind, all at once. Their weapons were different too. Not just energy beams or plasma cannons, but kinetic projectiles, moving at incredible velocity. Missiles that could think and dodge, and some kind of focused particle beam that cut through Draxon's shields like they were not even there. But the tactics were what truly disturbed him. When a human ship was damaged, it did not retreat. It accelerated toward the nearest Draxon vessel and tried to collide with it. Several succeeded. The recordings showed human ships, already on fire and venting atmosphere, ramming into Draxon cruisers at full speed. The explosions were massive. The Draxon crews had panicked. That was clear from the recordings. They had never faced an enemy that accepted death so casually, that used it as a weapon. Krilthas called an emergency council session, the great chamber filled with representatives from 30 species. They sat in their designated areas, speaking in dozens of languages, all translated in real time. Members of the council, Krilthas began. We have a situation that requires immediate attention. A new species has demonstrated military capabilities that exceed our current threat assessments. He showed them the recordings. The chamber fell silent, then erupted in chaos. "This is barbaric," shouted the Pelthian ambassador. "They fight like animals," added the Zith representative. Only one voice spoke calmly. Krilthas turned to see a human standing in the observer's gallery. She was shorter than most species present, dressed in simple gray clothing. Her name tag read, Ambassador Nari. "May I address the council?" she asked. The request was unusual, but the council chairman nodded. Nari walked down to the speaker's platform. She looked small among the gathered aliens, but her voice carried clearly. "My name is Nari. I represent humanity in diplomatic matters. I understand you are concerned about our military response to the Draxon attack. Let me be clear. We did not want this fight. We wanted peace. But when someone attacks our homes, kills our people, threatens our children, we respond. Completely. Finally. Without hesitation. You destroyed 3 entire fleets," the Pelthian ambassador shouted. "Yes," Nari said simply. "They came to destroy us. We destroyed them first. This is how war works." "No," Krilthas found himself saying. "That is not how war works in council space. We have rules, protocols. When conflicts arise, we negotiate. We find compromise. You surrender," Nari interrupted, "or you win with minimal losses and then negotiate. We saw your military history. You have not had a real war in 800 years. You have forgotten what war actually is." The chamber erupted again. But Krilthas stayed silent, because as he looked at the small human woman standing calmly in front of 30 hostile species, he realized something terrifying. She was not afraid of them at all. He pulled up the human database file again. Went deeper this time, past the basic biology and culture information, into their history. What he saw there made him understand. Humanity had been at war with itself for thousands of years. Wars that killed millions. Weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. They had nearly made themselves extinct multiple times. And somehow, they had survived all of it. These were not peaceful beings who had learned to fight. These were warriors who had learned to cooperate. And now they were in space. Krilthas began typing his preliminary report. His hands were shaking. The title wrote itself. Emergency Assessment. Human Military Threat Level. Unknown. Recommend. Immediate deep investigation required. He looked at the recordings again. At the ships that never retreated. At the crews that chose death over surrender. At Admiral Jiho's cold, calm eyes. The galaxy, Krilthas realized, had just become a much more dangerous place. Terran had been the Council's chief historian for 30 years. He had studied the rise and fall of civilizations, the development of cultures across 1,000 worlds, and the complex paths that led species from primitive tribes to spacefaring empires. He thought he understood how intelligent life evolved. Then he met the humans. Krilthas had asked him to conduct a complete historical analysis of humanity. Taran had agreed immediately. It seemed like fascinating work. A newly discovered species with unusual military capabilities. Probably some quirk in their development. Nothing too surprising. He was wrong. The council had assigned him a human liaison to help access their historical records. Her name was Yuna. She was young by human standards, perhaps 30 of their years, with dark hair and a pleasant smile. She seemed nice enough when they first met in the archives. "I'm here to help you understand my people," Yuna said, sitting across from him at the research terminal. "Where would you like to start?" "The beginning," Taran replied. "When did your species develop civilization?" Yuna thought for a moment. "Well, organized agriculture started about 12,000 years ago. Cities came a bit later. Writing around 5,000 years back." Taran nodded. "That was fairly standard." "And when did you achieve global peace?" "We haven't," Yuna said casually. Taran's tentacles froze mid-movement. "Excuse me? We haven't achieved global peace yet. We're better than we used to be. But there are still conflicts. Small ones. Mostly. Nothing like the old days." "The old days?" Taran felt confused. "You mean before spaceflight?" "Yes. We had 2 major global wars in the 20th century. Killed about 100 million people combined. Then we had the Cold War, which almost ended everything. And before that, well, we've basically been fighting each other since we figured out how to make sharp sticks." Taran stared at her. She was still smiling, as if she had just described something completely normal. "Let me understand this correctly," he said slowly. "Your species achieved spaceflight while still in a state of active warfare with itself?" "Yes. That's impossible. Every species in the Council achieved planetary peace before developing space technology. It's a requirement. You cannot cooperate enough to build spacecraft while fighting wars." Yuna laughed. It was not a mean laugh, but it made Taran uncomfortable. "We built our first spacecraft specifically for war. Rockets were weapons before they were exploration tools. We literally turned weapons into ways to reach the stars." Taran pulled up the human historical database. Yuna helped him navigate it. What he saw made him feel sick. Humans had been fighting wars for their entire recorded history. Not small conflicts. Not border disputes. Real wars. Wars that consumed entire continents. Wars that killed millions. The images showed burned cities, massive armies, weapons of incredible destructive power. "This is the Battle of Stalingrad," Yuna explained, showing him pictures of a destroyed city. "World War II. Over 1 million casualties, just in this one battle. Both sides refused to surrender. They fought for every building, every street, every room. Why?" Taran whispered. "Because surrender meant losing everything. So they fought. That's what we do." She showed him more. Ancient battles with swords and spears, medieval wars with castles and sieges, modern conflicts with tanks and aircraft, each more devastating than the last, each showing the same pattern. Humans fought until they won, or until they were completely destroyed. "Here's something interesting," Yuna said, pulling up files from the mid-20th century. "This is when we developed nuclear weapons. Bombs that could destroy entire cities in seconds. We built thousands of them, enough to end all life on our planet several times over." Taran felt faint. "You built weapons that could destroy your own species. Why would you do that?" "To prevent war," Yuna said. Her voice was serious now. "We called it mutually assured destruction. If anyone used nuclear weapons, everyone would die. So nobody used them. Well, nobody used them after the first 2. It actually worked. We haven't had a global war since." "You prevented war by threatening to destroy yourselves?" "Yes, we're good at that kind of thinking." Taran spent the next week going through human military history. Each day was worse than the last. He learned about ancient Rome, which conquered half their known world through constant warfare. About the Mongol Empire, which killed so many people that it changed the planet's climate. About the Napoleonic Wars, the American Civil War, the World Wars, and dozens of other conflicts. And through it all, humans kept developing new and better ways to kill each other. On the 8th day, another human joined them. His name was Minho, and he was a military historian. He was older, with gray hair and tired eyes. He brought more files. Yuna tells me you're struggling to understand our military culture, Minho said. Let me explain it differently. Every species in the council evolved in ways that favored cooperation. You needed to work together to survive. Fighting was expensive and dangerous, so you avoided it when possible. Taran nodded. Yes, exactly. That's basic evolutionary logic. Humans evolved differently, Minho continued. We are persistence hunters. We chase our prey until it collapses from exhaustion. We don't give up. Ever. That same instinct applies to warfare. When we fight, we don't stop until the enemy is completely defeated. Retreat and regroup is not in our basic nature. But you must have had peace sometimes, Taran said hopefully. We did. But even our peace was preparation for the next war. Look at this. Minho showed him something called the Cold War. Two massive human nations, heavily armed, facing each other for decades without direct fighting. We had peace, but we never stopped building weapons. Never stopped training soldiers. Never stopped preparing. That's insane. Maybe, Minho admitted. But we're still here. A lot of species aren't. We know about the Great Filter Theory. The idea that something kills most intelligent species before they reach the stars. Maybe we survived because we were already so good at surviving ourselves. Taran looked at the military statistics. Humans had fought over 15,000 significant wars in their recorded history. 15,000. Most council species had fought fewer than 10 in their entire existence. Here's what you need to understand, Minho said, pulling up a star map. When we reached space, we didn't stop being warriors. We just found a bigger battlefield. The Draxans thought we were weak because we're relatively new to space. They didn't realize that we've been practicing warfare for 10,000 years. They brought 300 ships. We've been building fleets and planning space combat scenarios since before we ever left our home system. You prepared for space war before you even met aliens? Of course, Minho said, as if it was obvious. We assumed the universe was hostile. Turns out we were right. Yuna pulled up a video file. This might help you understand our mindset. It's a speech from one of our old leaders during a major war. She played it. Taran listened to the words, translated into his language. The human leader spoke about fighting on beaches, in streets, in hills, about never surrendering, no matter the cost. The conviction in the voice made his tentacles curl in fear. That was Winston Churchill, Yuna said, facing an enemy that had conquered most of his continent. His nation was alone, outmatched, and being bombed daily. He refused to surrender. And eventually, he won. How? By refusing to lose. Taran spent another week compiling his report. He interviewed more humans. Each one confirmed the same basic truth. Humans were comfortable with violence in ways other species simply were not. They did not prefer it. They did not enjoy it, but they accepted it as a tool, and they had become incredibly good at using that tool. On the last day, Yuna found him in the archives. Have you figured us out yet? I think so, Taran said quietly. You're a species that should have destroyed itself a dozen times over. But somehow, you survived. And every time you faced extinction, you learned, you adapted, you became harder to kill. That's a good summary. And now you're in space. With all that knowledge, all that experience in warfare, and species like the Draxans, who have only known small conflicts and manageable wars, have no idea what they're facing. Yuna nodded. The galaxy has been at peace for a long time. That's wonderful. We're genuinely happy about that. But peace makes you soft. We never had that luxury. We learned to fight in the hardest school imaginable, against ourselves. Taran submitted his report to Krilthas. The conclusion was simple but terrifying. Humanity represents a fundamental military advantage based on 10,000 years of continuous warfare. No current Council species possesses equivalent combat experience or psychological conditioning for sustained conflict. Recommendation: avoid military confrontation with humans under all circumstances. He attached a note at the end. They are not evil. They are not conquerors, but they are warriors in a way we cannot fully comprehend, and they are very, very good at it. As Taran left the archives that night, he passed by a human memorial that had been set up in their embassy area. It showed names. Thousands and thousands of names. Human soldiers who had died in various wars. At the bottom was an inscription in human language. Yuna had told him what it meant. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Humans remembered everything. Every battle, every loss, every lesson. That, Taran realized, was what made them truly dangerous. War Master Quellan was considered the greatest military strategist in Council history. He had studied warfare for 60 years, commanded fleets in 3 successful campaigns, and written the definitive textbook on space combat tactics. He had never lost a battle simulation until he faced the humans. Krilthaz had brought him to the War Simulation Center deep beneath the Council complex. The room was massive, filled with holographic projectors that could recreate any battle scenario in perfect detail. Quellan stood in the center, his 6 arms crossed in a gesture of confidence. "Show me what makes these humans so special," Quellan said. "I'll find their weakness." Krilthas loaded the first scenario. A standard engagement. 50 Council ships versus 50 human ships. Equal numbers. Similar technology levels. The kind of fair fight that Council doctrine preferred. The simulation began. Quellan watched the human fleet scatter immediately. No formation, no defensive line. Just 50 ships accelerating in different directions at maximum speed. His tactical mind registered this as chaos, an enemy in disarray. "Target the command ship," he ordered his simulated fleet. "Focus fire and eliminate their coordination." The Council ships moved into formation, their shields overlapping for maximum protection. They identified what appeared to be the human flagship based on signal strength. 20 ships concentrated their fire on it. The human command ship took the hits. Its shields collapsed. Hull breaches appeared along its side. It was clearly dying. Then it launched every weapon it had and rammed directly into the center of the Council formation. The explosion took out 3 Council ships and damaged 5 more. "What?" Quellan started to say. The rest of the human fleet attacked. But not from one direction. From everywhere at once. Above, below, from 3 different angles. They moved at speeds that should have made coordinated firing impossible. Yet their accuracy was perfect. Council ships started exploding. Quellan tried to reform his line. Too late. The humans were already inside his formation, firing at point-blank range. When Council ships tried to turn to face them, other human ships hit them from behind. It was like fighting shadows. The simulation ended. All 50 Council ships destroyed. 37 human ships survived. "Again," Quellan said, his voice tight. They ran the simulation 10 more times. 10 more defeats. Quellan tried different tactics each time. Defensive formations, aggressive charges, hit and run attacks. Divide and conquer. Nothing worked. The humans adapted to everything, and they never stopped attacking. "They're accepting casualties that no rational commander would accept," Quellan said, studying the data. "Look at this. In Engagement 4, they lost 23 ships, nearly half their force. But they still won. How can they function with such losses?" Because they expect losses," Krilthas said quietly. "Their training assumes 30% casualties is acceptable. They plan for it. Your fleet breaks down psychologically when losses reach 10%. Quellan ran more simulations. Gave himself better ships. Better weapons. Numerical advantages. 2-to-1. 3-to-1. The humans still won, or at least fought to mutual destruction. They never surrendered, never retreated to preserve forces. They simply fought until one side was gone. The final simulation gave Quelon 500 ships against 200 human vessels. This time he thought he had them. Numbers were numbers. Even superior tactics couldn't overcome that kind of advantage. He was wrong. The humans split into 20 small groups. Each group targeted isolated portions of his fleet. They attacked, caused maximum damage, and then scattered before reinforcements arrived. When he tried to chase them, other groups hit him from different directions. It was death by 1,000 cuts. By the time the simulation ended, he had lost 300 ships. The humans had lost 140. But more importantly, his fleet was scattered, disorganized, and broken. The remaining human forces were regrouping for another attack. The simulation predicted total council defeat within 2 more engagements. Quelon sat down heavily. His confidence was gone. "I don't know how to beat them." "Neither do I," Krilthus admitted. "But we may not have to figure it out in simulation. The Draxans are preparing a revenge fleet." "Neither do I. We have to be the Draxans are preparing a revenge fleet." War Marshal Vrex had not asked for council permission. The Draxans were too angry, too proud to accept their defeat. They were gathering every available ship, 300 vessels, with their best crews and newest weapons. They planned to destroy every human colony in Sector 447. When Krilthus heard about the fleet movements, he tried to stop it. Contacted Vrex directly. The Draxan commander refused to listen. "We will have satisfaction," Vrex growled over the comm. "The humans will learn what it means to challenge the Draxan Empire." The fleet launched 3 days later. Krilthus tracked their progress through council monitoring stations. The armada moved toward human space like an incoming storm. Sensors showed the fleet was well organized, well equipped, and confident. Then they crossed into human territory. Admiral Jiho was waiting. The human commander had only 40 ships with him. Carrier Group Iron Rain, it was called. But Krilthus had learned enough to know that numbers didn't tell the whole story with humans. The first contact report came in. The Draxan fleet had detected the human carriers and was moving to engage. Vrex was certain of victory. 300 against 40. It should have been a massacre. It was. Just not the massacre Vrex expected. The human carriers didn't run. They launched fighters. Hundreds of small, fast attack craft that poured out like angry insects. The fighters swarmed the Draxan capital ships, targeting engines and weapon systems. Draxan point defense guns shot down dozens of them, but more kept coming. One fighter pilot, a human named Sumin, became the focus of the battle recordings. Her small craft dodged through enemy fire, destroyed 2 Draxan cruisers with precise shots, and led her wing in a direct attack on Vrex's flagship. The recordings showed her ship taking hits, trailing fire, but never stopping. She damaged the flagship's main cannon before finally being forced to eject, but she had done her job. The flagship was hurt. Commander Hyun, leading the carrier group, saw the opening. He ordered his carriers forward, not away from the fight, toward it. The massive ships launched missile swarms, thousands of warheads, each guided by its own targeting computer. The missiles didn't all fly straight. They dodged, weaved, confused enemy sensors. The Draxan point defense couldn't track them all. Explosions bloomed across the Draxan fleet. Vrex tried to regroup, ordered his ships into a defensive sphere, shields overlapping. Standard Council defensive tactics. It should have protected them. The humans didn't care. They sent their damaged ships forward. Vessels that were already dying. Their crews already beyond saving. But instead of withdrawing, these ships accelerated. They rammed into the Draxan sphere at full speed. The explosions were massive. The defensive formation broke apart. Hyun's remaining carriers moved in. They fired everything. Energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, more missiles. The battle became a slaughter. Krilthus watched the sensor data in real time from the Council observation post. The numbers were horrifying. 50 Draxan ships destroyed in the first 10 minutes. 100 after 30 minutes. The fleet was falling apart. Vrex broadcast a retreat order. Too late. The humans had split his fleet into small groups and were destroying them one at a time. When Draxan ships tried to run, the fighters chased them down. When they tried to fight, the carriers hammered them from range. 2 hours after the battle began, it was over. The Draxan fleet was destroyed. 273 ships gone. Only 27 managed to escape by jumping to faster than light speed before the humans could stop them. The human carrier group had lost 19 ships, less than half their force. They were already recovering their fighters and moving to defensive positions around their colonies. Krilthas pulled up the communication from Hyun after the battle. The human commander looked tired. There was no celebration in his voice. No boasting. Just facts. This is Commander Hyun to any Draxan forces listening. Your attack has failed. Your fleet is destroyed. If you want to recover your survivors, we will allow rescue ships to enter our space unarmed. You have 48 hours. After that, we will assume any ship entering our territory is hostile. The message was almost kind, but underneath it was steel. The humans were offering mercy to survivors, but making it clear that the war was over. The Draxans had lost. Quellen watched the battle recordings with Krilthas. The old strategist was quiet for a long time. They turned their losses into weapons, he finally said. Every damaged ship, every dying crew. They used it all. There's no defense against an enemy that fights like that. Is there any way to beat them? Krilthas asked. Quellon thought for a long time. Maybe with overwhelming numbers. 10 to 1. Maybe 20 to 1. You'd take horrible losses, but you might win. But who would order such an attack? What cause would be worth losing 95% of your fleet? What cause would make humans accept such losses? That's the question that terrifies me, Quellen said. Because I suspect the answer is almost anything they consider important. News of the battle spread through the council within hours. The Draxan Empire was in shock. They had sent their finest fleet, and it had been destroyed in 2 hours. The other council members were equally stunned. Some were scared. Others were calculating. Ambassador Nari appeared before the council the next day. She was calm, as always. She made no threats. She simply stated facts. We defended ourselves. That's all. We will continue to defend ourselves if necessary. But we prefer peace, trade, cooperation. The choice is yours. As she left the council chamber, Krilthas realized something. The humans weren't conquerors. They didn't want to rule the galaxy. They just wanted to be left alone. But if you didn't leave them alone, they would destroy you. Completely, efficiently, without hesitation. And they were very, very good at it. The emergency summit was held on Concordia Station, a neutral diplomatic facility that orbited a blue giant star between Council and human space. The station was beautiful, built from crystalline materials that caught and reflected the star's light in brilliant patterns. It was designed to inspire peace and cooperation. Ambassador Nari arrived on a small human transport ship. She brought a small delegation with her. Besides herself, there was a psychologist named Taeyang and an intelligence officer named Hana. The 3 humans walked into the massive council chamber where representatives from all 30 council species waited. The mood was not friendly. The humans must limit their military capabilities, the Pelthian ambassador demanded before Nari had even reached her seat. Your weapons are too powerful. Your tactics too aggressive. You threaten the peace we have maintained for 800 years. Nari sat down calmly. She folded her hands on the table in front of her. We threaten no one who doesn't threaten us first. You destroyed 2 Draxan fleets, the Xith representative shouted. 700 ships, tens of thousands dead. They attacked our worlds first, Nari replied, her voice level. What did you expect us to do? Surrender? Allow our colonies to be conquered? Let our people die without defending them. You could have negotiated, several voices said at once. With an invasion fleet? You negotiate before shooting, not after. Krilthas, sitting in his observer position, watched the exchange carefully. The council members were angry and scared. They wanted the humans to become less dangerous, but they didn't understand that you couldn't simply ask a warrior species to forget how to fight. The council chairman, a wise old being from the Voth species, raised a hand for silence. Ambassador Nari, we are not questioning your right to self-defense. We are concerned about your methods, your willingness to accept casualties, your aggressive tactics. These things are unusual to us. We brought someone to help explain, Nari said. She gestured to Taeyang, the psychologist. He stood and walked to the center of the chamber. He looked nervous, but his voice was steady when he spoke. My name is Taeyang. I study human psychology and evolution. I'm here to help you understand why we are the way we are. He pulled up a holographic display. It showed the evolutionary tree of humanity. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on our homeworld. We didn't chase prey by being faster or stronger. We chased them until they collapsed from exhaustion. This hunting method required specific psychological traits: determination, the ability to endure pain, and refusal to give up. These traits are built into our basic psychology. The hologram changed, showing early human tribes. Then we developed tribal structures, small groups competing for resources. This created another layer of psychology: loyalty to your group, willingness to defend it, and readiness to fight threats. For most of human evolution, the biggest threat to humans was other humans. We learned to fight ourselves, and we got very good at it. But you evolved past that, the Voth chairman said hopefully. You developed civilization, ethics, laws. We did, Taeyang agreed. But we didn't lose those earlier instincts. We just learned to control them better. Think of it this way. Every human carries a warrior inside them. Most of the time, that warrior sleeps. We go about our lives peacefully. But when we're threatened, when our families or homes are in danger, that warrior wakes up, and 10,000 years of warfare has made that warrior very effective. The hologram showed human wars through history. The images were disturbing to the council members. Taeyang kept talking. You, all of you, evolved on worlds where cooperation was strongly rewarded and conflict was strongly punished. Your species learned that fighting was too expensive, too dangerous. You developed psychology that avoids conflict. This is good. It's why you have peace. And humans didn't develop this? The Pelthian ambassador asked. We developed it differently. We learned that cooperation within groups was essential for survival. But we also learned that sometimes you have to fight. That surrender can be worse than death. That some things are worth dying for. These lessons are written into our culture, our psychology, our basic nature. The chamber was quiet. Taeyang sat back down. The council members looked troubled. They were beginning to understand. But understanding didn't make them less afraid. The Voth chairman spoke again. What you're describing sounds like a species that cannot truly have peace. No, Nari said firmly. We have peace among ourselves now. It took time, but we learned. We stopped fighting each other. Mostly. We formed a unified government. We directed our energies toward exploration and building instead of war. But we didn't forget how to fight. We just chose not to. And if we ask you to limit your military? The chairman pressed. Nari's expression hardened. We will not disarm because our strength frightens you. We have faced extinction before. From ourselves and from nature. We survived by being prepared, by being strong, by never letting our guard down. You're asking us to make ourselves weak in a universe we've just begun to explore. That's not going to happen. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species demanded human compliance. Others suggested isolation, keeping humanity quarantined in their own sector. A few suggested preemptive action, though they were quickly silenced when reminded of what happened to the Draxans. Then Hana, the intelligence officer, stood up. She was young, barely into her 30s, but she carried herself with authority. May I speak? The chairman nodded. We've been monitoring council communications, Hana said bluntly. We know you consider us a threat. We know some of you are discussing ways to contain us. But while you're focused on us, you're missing a bigger threat. She activated a large holographic display. It showed a sector of space beyond Council territory. Red markers indicated massive fleet movements. This is the Vryn Collective. You know about them. Aggressive species from beyond the Outer Rim. They've been watching the Council for decades, waiting for the right moment. They see your 800 years of peace, and they think you're weak. They're gathering an invasion force. 2,000 ships. Maybe more. They're planning to hit Council space within the next few months. The chamber fell silent. Krilthus pulled up the Vryn file. They were known to the Council, but considered a distant threat. A problem for another day. The data Hana was showing suggested that day had arrived. How did you get this information? The chairman asked. We sent scout ships. Fast, small, hard to detect. We wanted to know who our neighbors were. The Vryn didn't see us, but we saw them. And what we saw was an armada preparing for war. Why would they attack us? The Pelthian ambassador asked. Because you've been at peace for 800 years, Hana said simply. You've forgotten how to fight. They've been watching you get softer, weaker. They see easy conquests, resource-rich worlds with minimal defenses. It's logical from their perspective. Quelon, the War Master, spoke up. He had been silent until now. Can the Council defeat a force of 2,000 ships? Hana looked at him directly. No. Based on our analysis of your military capabilities and the Vryn's known strength, you'd lose. Badly. You might destroy 500 of their ships if you fought perfectly, but they'd still win. The chamber erupted again, this time in fear. The Council had been focused on the human threat. They had forgotten there were other dangers in the galaxy. And this one was about to attack. Nari stood up. She waited for silence. When she spoke, her voice carried across the chamber. We're offering a deal. Full membership in the Galactic Council for Humanity. In exchange, we'll help you fight the Vryn. Our fleets, our tactics, our experience. We'll stand with you against this invasion. And what else do you want? The chairman asked. There's always something else. Military autonomy, Nari said. We maintain our own defense forces. We command our own ships. We're not asking to control Council forces. But you don't get to control ours either. We fight as allies, not as subordinates. You want us to accept you as equals? The Pelthian ambassador said incredulously. You just arrived in Council space. No, Nari corrected. We want you to accept us as partners. We don't need to be equals. We just need to be respected. You have science, culture, centuries of cooperation and knowledge. We have military experience and the will to fight. Together, we might survive what's coming. Apart, you'll definitely lose. The Council members talked among themselves. The debate lasted for hours. Some species refused to consider it. Others saw the logic. The Draxans, humiliated by their defeats, stayed silent. Finally, the Voth chairman called for a vote. It was not unanimous. 5 species voted against, but 25 voted in favor. Humanity would join the Galactic Council as full members with military autonomy. As the session ended, Krilthas approached Nari. You planned this, he said. You knew about the Vryn threat before you came here. You used it to get what you wanted. Nari looked at him with those calm human eyes. We learned about the Vryn 2 months ago. We could have said nothing. Let them attack you. Waited to see who won. Then dealt with the survivors. That would have been safer for us. Why didn't you? Because we believe in cooperation. In alliances. In standing together against threats. We're warriors, yes, but we're not monsters. If we can help, we will. Even if you're scared of us. Even if you don't trust us. And if we had voted no? Krilthas asked. If we had refused your offer? Nari smiled slightly. Then we would have defended our own space and wished you luck. But I'm glad it didn't come to that. As she walked away, Krilthas realized something. The humans had just saved the Council from making a fatal mistake. By forcing them to look beyond their fear, to see the real threat, Nari had probably saved millions of lives. The galaxy was changing. The 800 years of peace were ending. War was coming, but this time, the Council wouldn't face it alone. They had humanity standing with them. Krilthas just hoped they were ready for what that meant. The Kepler line was a natural defensive position in deep space, a region where gravitational fields from 3 nearby stars created navigation hazards that channeled ships through predictable paths. War Master Quellen had chosen it as the place to make their stand against the Vryn invasion. His forces numbered 800 Council ships, the largest fleet assembled in centuries. It wasn't enough. The Vryn Collective arrived with 2,300 vessels. Their ships were dark, angular, built for aggression. They moved like a swarm. No elegant formations, just overwhelming mass. The scout reports had been accurate. This was an invasion fleet meant to conquer, not negotiate. Quellen stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the sensor displays with growing dread. He had positioned his fleet carefully, using the Kepler line's gravitational anomalies to create choke points. His ships overlapped their shields, presented a unified front. Textbook, defensive tactics. The Vryn didn't care about textbooks. They hit the Council line like a hammer. Their ships charged forward, accepting losses from Council fire, and crashed into the defensive formation with brutal force. Quellen's carefully arranged fleet broke apart in minutes. His ships scattered, trying to reform, trying to maintain some kind of order. The Vryn swarmed the isolated groups and destroyed them one by one. "Fall back," Quellen ordered. "Reform at point Delta 7. But his crews were panicking. They had trained for battle, but not like this. Not against an enemy that threw ships away like they were nothing. Not against forces that outnumbered them 3-1. Council ships started breaking away, fleeing toward the jump points. Quellen couldn't stop them. Within 30 minutes of first contact, his 800 ships had become 400 scattered vessels running for their lives. The Vryn gave chase. They were winning, and they knew it. Then the humans arrived. Admiral Jiho's fleet jumped into the system right in the middle of the chaos. 200 human vessels, led by his flagship Indomitable. The ships formed up with frightening speed and headed straight toward the Vryn swarm. Quellen watched from his fleeing command ship. The humans were outnumbered more than 10-1. It was suicide. But they didn't slow down. They accelerated. "All Council ships. This is Admiral Jiho." The human commander's voice came over the fleet channel. His voice was calm, almost casual. "Reform on our position. We're about to show you how to fight a real war." On the human flagship, Tactical Officer Doyun stood at his station, his fingers dancing across control panels. He was young, barely 30. But he had trained for this his entire life. Every simulation, every exercise, every lesson had been preparing him for exactly this moment. "Execute strategy, Sigma," Jiho ordered. Doyun's hands moved. The human fleet split into 20 smaller groups. Each group was 10 ships. They didn't form defensive lines. They scattered in all directions, moving at maximum speed. The Vryn, seeing the humans divide their forces, moved to crush them. They concentrated their ships on the nearest human group. 300 Vryn vessels against 10 human ships. It should have been over in seconds. It wasn't. The 10 human ships didn't try to fight 300 enemies. They didn't hold position or try to defend. They attacked the Vryn command ships. Ignored everything else. Just targeted the largest vessels, the ones broadcasting command signals, and threw everything they had at them. 2 Vryn command ships exploded. The 300 vessels suddenly lost coordination. They stopped moving as a unit and started making individual decisions. That moment of confusion was all the humans needed. The 10 ships scattered again. The Vryn gave chase. But now the Vryn ships were strung out, disorganized, and other human groups hit them from the sides. The 300 Vryn ships became 200, then 150, then 100. The same pattern repeated across the battlefield. Human groups attacked, caused chaos, and retreated. Then, other human groups attacked from different angles. The Vryn fleet was larger, but it was being pulled apart, scattered, confused. Do-yoon watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Strategy, Sigma is working. Enemy fleet cohesion down to 40%. Recommend continuing current operations. Agreed, Jiho said. Send to all groups. Keep moving. Never stop. Make them chase shadows. Fighter pilot Sumin led her wing through the chaos. She had survived the last battle with the Draxons, barely. Her fighter had been shot up badly, but she had ejected and been rescued. Now she was back in a new ship, and she was angry. Tiger Wing, follow me, she said into her comm. Target those carriers. 12 human fighters dove toward a group of Vryn carrier ships. The carriers were massive, 3 times the size of human vessels. Their point defense guns opened fire. Space filled with energy beams and explosive rounds. One of Sumin's wingmates exploded. Then another. Sumin didn't slow down. She couldn't. The mission was more important than any individual pilot. She wove through the defensive fire, her hands steady on the controls, her targeting computer locked onto the carrier's hangar bay. She fired. Her missiles streaked forward and disappeared into the opening. The explosion came from inside the carrier. The ship broke in half. Sumin pulled up hard, evading debris. 10 fighters had gone in, 6 came out. But they had destroyed 3 carriers. It was acceptable losses. Humans understood acceptable losses. Captain Yunji commanded the destroyer Relentless. Her ship was smaller than most in the fleet, built for speed and hitting power rather than endurance. She had been in the military for 15 years, and had never fired her weapons in anger until the Draxons attacked. Now she was in her second major battle in 2 months. Captain, we have multiple enemy vessels targeting us, her tactical officer reported. Shields at 40% and falling. Unji looked at her display. Her ship was damaged. Life support was failing in 3 sections. Half her weapons were offline. The smart thing would be to retreat. Get repairs. Come back later. But the Council ships were still running, and the Vryn were still chasing them. If someone didn't stop them, the Council fleet would be completely destroyed. All power to engines, Unji ordered. Weapons, give me everything left in the forward batteries. Captain? Her executive officer looked at her with wide eyes. We're ramming that command ship, Unji said, pointing at a massive Vryn vessel that was directing the pursuit of Council forces. Get everyone to escape pods. You have 60 seconds. I'm staying, her executive officer said. So am I, said the tactical officer. Me too, said the helmsman. Unji felt pride and grief at the same time. Pride in her crew. Grief because she knew what was about to happen. Then let's make this count. The Relentless accelerated. The Vryn command ship saw them coming and fired everything. Unji's shields collapsed. Her hull took direct hits. Compartments vented atmosphere. But the destroyer kept moving. At the last second, Unji armed every remaining explosive on her ship. Missiles, torpedoes, even the reactor, set to overload. The impact was massive. The Relentless struck the Vryn command ship at full speed and detonated. The explosion was like a small star being born. Both ships vanished in the blast. Watching from his command ship, Do-yoon marked the destroyer's icon as destroyed on his tactical display. His face showed no emotion, but his hands paused for just a moment. He had known Unji, had served with her on a previous ship. She had been good at her job. Now she was gone, but her sacrifice had worked. The Vryn forces in that sector lost coordination again. Council ships managed to escape. Dozens of them, maybe 100, would survive because of what Unji had done. Do-yoon's hands moved again. There was still a battle to fight. The fighting continued for 6 hours. It was the longest continuous space battle in Council history. The Vryn kept pushing, kept attacking. They had numbers on their side, but the humans had experience and the will to never stop fighting. Slowly, the Vryn advance stalled. They had lost over 900 ships. The humans had lost 68. Council forces, rallied by human tactics, had destroyed another 200. The Vryn commander finally understood something important. This battle was not going the way he had planned. The Vryn fleet stopped advancing, started pulling back, trying to regroup. Jiho saw the change on his tactical display. They're breaking. All ships, pursue. Don't let them reform. The human fleet charged forward. They were tired, damaged, running low on ammunition. But they didn't slow down. They hit the retreating Vryn ships again and again. Council forces, inspired by human example, joined the pursuit. The Vryn retreat became a rout. Ships fled in all directions. Some tried to fight. Most just ran. By the time the pursuit ended, the Vryn collective had lost 1,400 ships. Their invasion fleet was destroyed. The humans had lost 68 ships. The Council had lost 400. Together, they had won. On the Indomitable, Admiral Jiho looked at the casualty reports. 8,000 human crew members dead. 23,000 wounded. The numbers were terrible, but they had saved the Council, and probably prevented a war that would have killed millions. Send a message to the Vryn collective, Jiho ordered. Tell them if they want peace, we'll negotiate. If they want more war, we'll give them that too. Their choice. The response came 3 hours later. The Vryn wanted peace. They wanted it badly. They had thought the Council was weak. They had never encountered humans before. Now they understood that the galaxy had changed. Krilthas arrived at the Kepler line 2 days later on a Council relief ship. He toured the battlefield, saw the debris fields, counted the dead. The cost had been enormous. But the alternative would have been worse. He found Admiral Jiho on his flagship. The human commander was in his private quarters, looking at pictures. Photos of crew members who had died. Jiho looked tired. Old. There was none of the calm confidence from before. You won, Krilthas said. We survived, Jiho corrected. Winning would mean everyone came home. That didn't happen. Your people fought brilliantly. Your tactics were perfect. Tactics are just math. They don't bring back the dead. Jiho looked at him. You wanted to know what makes humans different? This is it. We fight. We win. But we remember every single person we lose. Every name. Every face. And we carry that weight forever. Krilthas understood then. Humans weren't fearless. They were scared like everyone else. They felt loss like everyone else. But they fought anyway, because some things were worth fighting for. The Council owes you a debt, Krilthas said. We don't want debt. We want partnership. Alliance. Friends who will stand with us, like we stood with you. Our men. Alliance. First one. Alliance Lashen. You have that now. Jiho nodded slowly. He turned back to the pictures of the dead. Krilthas left him alone with his grief. A week later, Krilthas submitted his final assessment report to the Council. His conclusion was simple. Humanity represents unprecedented space power based on 10,000 years of continuous warfare, psychological conditioning that accepts casualties other species cannot bear, and tactical innovation that renders traditional defensive strategies obsolete. However, humans are not conquerors. They are defenders who will fight with absolute determination to protect their homes and allies. Recommendation: maintain alliance at all costs. Never engage in conflict with humans. In times of crisis, humanity represents the Council's greatest military asset. He added a final note, personal rather than official. We spent 800 years building a civilization based on peace. It is beautiful and precious. Humanity spent 10,000 years building a civilization based on survival. It is hard and unbreakable. Together, we might have both peace and the strength to defend it. This is my hope. Ambassador Nari read the report in her office. She smiled slightly. Then she returned to her work, building bridges between her people and the galaxy they now called home. The war was over. But the real work of building a lasting peace was just beginning. And this time, humanity would be part of it. Not as conquerors. Not as threats. But as guardians. The galaxy had learned what humans were capable of in war. Now it would learn what they could achieve in peace. That, Nari thought, would be the real story worth telling.